It's no secret at this point that Call of Duty Vanguard was one of the most poorly received titles in the entire franchise history. Even among titles that only include zombies, this is by far the most unanimously decided bad, and even more so, it was the fastest zombies mode to be dead on arrival. Vanguard Zombies is also incredibly unique in the sense that every controversial Cod Zombies game in recent years has at least had some kind of split within the community. While the majority of people, for example, tended to not like Black Ops 4 Zombies very much, it still had / does have a dedicated audience that loves and defends the game even to this day as well. You'll find that almost across the board with Cod Zombies games, Infinite Warfare, World War II, Exo Zombies, etc. I'm sure you've all noticed that there's still a substantial amount of people that defend games like World War II Zombies or BO4, even though the majority doesn't prefer these games. There's a good amount of people that still do, however. The interesting thing here is that literally doesn't exist for Vanguard Zombies. There's virtually no part of the community that actively enjoys / defends the games like they do have for those prior titles we discussed. And when the most iconic thing to come out of Vanguard Zombies in the community is the picture of Bearish Milo, and this is sort of just a representation of the game as a whole, the question then becomes why? And after recently being able to see that Sledgehammer Games has basically pulled the life support on the game that it was running on, I decided to do something a little bit different with this review today. Normally, I would see a game to its end, evaluate it based on its merit and overall craft, and do a typical retrospective analysis. However, as Sledgehammer Games have pulled the plug on the life support, so to speak, this is going to be more of an autopsy than a retrospective. Now, don't worry, we're still going to discuss how the game functions, and I'm going to take apart the gameplay in detail and talk about what did and didn't work, and we're going to sort through all that. But after carefully thinking about the entire circumstance about Vanguard Zombies, it's very unique, and I've realized that the cause of death in this case is slightly more complex than I originally thought. And the goal here today is to really nail down what it was exactly that killed Vanguard Zombies so quickly so that something like this doesn't happen again. Now, let me just add on one thing before we get too deep into this, and I say this with all seriousness and sincerity. I'm so thankful that Vanguard Zombies happened. While this certainly was like a net negative for the zombies community, as a whole, this was a net positive for me personally. It ended up being the catalyst for me making some massive changes in my real life. It was a real wake-up call for me to not be reliant on only ever posting one thing and to solely rely on that for content, to not be scared to try and upload new content on games that I previously would have been too scared to upload. I started wasting way less time in my computer, and I got in the gym hardcore over the past few months and have gotten into much better shape as a result. I decided to leave my house every once in a while. I've been touching grass more. I went and got a girlfriend for a bit, and I've completely quit drinking alcohol, and I even decided to move to a new state. Basically, I've made a lot of massive changes, and Vanguard Zombies was not the cause of it, so to speak, but it was definitely the catalyst for that, and I know that might sound silly, but it's a perfect segue into discussing what it was that went wrong with the game. Cast your mind all the way back to near the summer of 2021. Cold War Zombies was full steam ahead into its DLC season, and things were going fairly well. For myself, Cold War Zombies was a great win-win situation for me. I had a reliable source of content and therefore a job and a purpose when I wake up every day. Additionally, I was completely addicted and in love with playing zombies again. It was a feeling I really hadn't had since Black Ops 3, and as the year came to an end, we got word that Sledgehammer Games was making the next Call of Duty title. And we're also told that the game will have zombies in it. And if you're anything like me, you probably thought to yourself, well, I mean, Sledgehammer doesn't really have like the best track record when it comes to zombies. I mean, sure, there were some neat and special parts about both Exo Zombies and how even World War II had its moments, but all in all, the games in the scope of the entire series were nothing spectacular, so they haven't got it quite right there. But hey, this is the third time around. Maybe Sledgehammer's finally going to get it right. And with Cold War Zombies onboarding so many new people and the community generally in good spirits, maybe this Zombies title will actually be pretty good. Maybe you even kind of liked Exo Zombies or World War II and maybe wanted to see them expand on those ideas a little bit. And hey, I mean, really, what's the worst that could happen? It's a Zombies title, you know, it's better than nothing, but then you actually played the game. Oh. We also promptly discovered that this year's Zombies mode was being made by Treyarch and was continuing in the same Dark Ether story universe that Cold War took place in. This was huge for the game. It was a massive confidence boost for players and the community alike that the studio that made all of our favorite Zombies experiences over the years was once again taking the reins on this project as well. And hey, Treyarch hasn't had the opportunity to make a World War II themed Zombies game since Call of Duty World at War, basically a decade ago. And maybe this game will be something like a spiritual successor to World at War Zombies, and a bit of a return to the simplistic but extraordinarily fun and addicting days of classic Zombies with a bit of a twist. Our minds were racing at all the possibilities they could be cooking up. Now, looking at this in hindsight, I believe the first major error had already occurred, and this is mistake number one. That error was expectation. Announcing to the world that Vanguard is going to have a Zombies mode made by Treyarch, perhaps intentionally or unintentionally, set sort of a minimum threshold in terms of quality and fun the game had to meet. If Sledgehammer had just come out and said, hey, we're releasing a Zombies mode in Vanguard that's made by us, and we're going to be giving it a try to freshen up the Zombies formula, and we really wanted to see what we could do creatively with this. You get the point I'm making. This would have automatically slightly lowered the bar that we would have come to expect for a Zombies title. It's like, you know, the guys did produce also Exo Zombies in World War II, and while yes, they can be fun in their own little ways, I'm not going to directly compare your game to a Treyarch title, for example, so there's a little bit more leeway there. The stakes would have been so much lower if they didn't slap the Treyarch name onto it. Instead, they decided to bet the entire farm by putting the reputation of Treyarch on the back of this project. While it was the wrong move, I can understand why they did this though. Short-term sales would benefit as a result of selling the Treyarch name to get people to purchase the game and in the door regardless of the quality. This sort of short-term thinking came at the cost of tarnishing the overall reputation and goodwill the Call of Duty franchise has built back up with its audience over the past few years. Here, I can only speak for myself, but one of the reasons Black Ops Cold War Zombies worked so well for me was because I had zero expectations going in. Their last title was BO4, which by that point I had already fallen far out of love with zombies, and I had no expectations going in, yet I was more than pleasantly surprised at just how good Cold War Zombies ended up being. It doesn't work when you sell us solely on the expectation or idea, and deliver a product that couldn't even be called an alpha build when it came out. My ultimate point with this is perhaps we as players expected a little bit too much from a project like this, and maybe we all need to take just a little bit of accountability and maybe setting the bar too high in our own minds. However, recognize that most of the material that fueled our expectation setting was done by them. They absolutely sold us on the idea and none of the substance. And this brings me to my next point. Number 2, presentation. So it came time for both Sledgehammer Games and Treyarch to announce and show off the game, and the first things it got were some amazing art pieces, some stellar music from Kevin Sherwood, the Damned theme with a different twinge on it than we've seen before, and like unironically, the main menu music called Damned 5, it literally goes so hard. It's one of my favorite versions of the song that's ever been produced. The internet at this point was going ballistic praising them for the amazing music, the stunning artistic direction, and exciting news regarding what to expect next. And as with every COD game, some paid shills, I mean unbiased reviewers, were able to post some reviews of the games and their experiences with it. Let's read some of these, shall we?
Call of Duty Vanguard is an incredibly robust package, offering up tons of content for the buck. Zombies mode is far more enjoyable and varied. Call of Duty Vanguard may be the best COD installment to date, with stunning graphics that shine on the new systems and finely tuned, balanced gunplay. Call of Duty Vanguard's campaign misses the mark, but multiplayer and zombies do the heavy lifting to get this title to a good place. Call of Duty remains an excellent choice for some shooting, looting, and zombie executing.
And this one is also real.
Call of Duty Vanguard's campaign is meaty. The Battle Pass will keep you going a while, and Zombies is wonderfully addictive.
And it didn't stop there. Treyarch then decided to reveal the gameplay trailer to the whole world, and you gotta admit, they make the game actually look pretty decent from these trailers visually, but we should have known something was up when we listened to them speak about it.
Team at Treyarch is pulling out all the stops to tell a new, brutal story that expands and explores the unsettling world the Dark Ether.
Hey, okay, that sounds pretty good. I'm on board so far.
It's an experience that immerses and innovates on the core Treyarch Zombies gameplay.
Okay, all right, that's interesting. I'm in.
Is der Anfang.
Okay. Oh boy, is this ironic now.
Sightlines will be obscured by piles of dead corpses
Wait,
from Soviet
what?
and German soldiers.
What
and it
did
all
you say
comes to
about
life,
sightlines?
so to speak. In Vanguard's
Does that
epic
sound kind of
World War II
stupid to
setting.
anybody else? You know, at this point, we should have known something was up when they start talking about how some of the most their game has to offer is obscured sightlines.
Where these 5 otherworldly artifacts come from, each one linked to a powerful Dark Ether entity.
Okay, so...
Cortifex, the Deathless, Syraxis, the Shadow,
that's kind of
Nordicus, the
cool.
Conqueror,
I guess.
Invictor, the
That's
Destroyer,
kind of
and
interesting.
Belikar,
I
the
mean,
Warlock.
it's
These Dark
a
Ether
character
entities
of
bind their
the
powers
thing
to our
that we
human
use.
Cortifex, the Deathless. This former lord
Okay,
of the
so
Dark
that's
Ether
our
grants
main
him
bad guy.
the
He
ability
kind of
to
looks like
raise the
Richtofen,
dead.
and
that's
he
why,
can make zombies.
A year after their worst defeat,
Okay.
Von List takes Divor
Hey, why
Heights
don't we see
back
those
to
guys
Stalingrad.
with the
He's
things
going to
in
raise
game?
an undead army,
They're kind of
march
cool,
them across
but
Europe,
we don't see them
and
anywhere.
annihilate the Allied forces.
Oh, it's gonna be one of these games.
And 4 Dark Ether entities willing to bond with them and share their power.
Hey, why does
They do
Cortifex
this
want to
in
win the
interest of defeating
war?
Cortifex, the Deathless.
Isn't he like a
While
god?
these entities may be helping humans, players will find out that they have their own agendas.
Oh,
It's an unlikely
okay,
team.
all right, that's fair.
It's our only shot at keeping the Third Reich from winning World War II.
Oh, it's just about the war again.
We had a lot of fun designing the different objective environments. Each location has a very distinct look and feel to the play space, so that no 2 areas will feel similar.
It was important to establish unique visuals. It is a look that feels more grounded, something you can have nightmares about.
I have nightmares about it.
Have your basic grunt zombie.
And we also have
Oh, here we get
our
enemy
heavies.
types.
These big guys
There's a mini
carry
boss.
around miniguns, and those are the Sturm.
Oh, he has a
or
gun.
Storm Warriors. They are really hard to bring down, and it's hard
oh,
to avoid
no.
them when they shoot. We also have something
Oh,
called
Jesus
the Boom
Christ.
Schreier, which means boom screamer.
Oh
in
no,
German.
aren't those the
These are
things
zombies that
from
will
World
run
War
real
II?
quick
Oh,
and
Jesus
explode in contact?
Christ.
It's a wide variety of
Oh,
threats. They
God.
all start to
This
pile
already
up as you
sounds
get further
annoying.
in.
But there's a lot we're doing different this time too.
Okay, so like
The
what?
runes are something new in Vanguard. Dark Ether rune magic is the thing that the Dark Ether entities use.
Wait,
to
isn't
manifest
this
their
just the
powers.
thing that you
That
gather
winds up
when
being
you're
very
doing
important
an
as the story
objective?
plays out.
Fighting zombies is the core of this mode, and it's what all our fans love doing, and we give you plenty of ways to do that.
However, players can't get too comfortable here because Stalingrad is still inhabited by roaming zombies.
Wait, why though? Isn't this
The
supposed to
area
be
is
like a
relatively
safe
confined,
space
But as
or
you
something?
complete objectives, the map
I'm
opens
so
up.
confused.
A brand new system to zombies that randomizes every time you come back from an objective what you can purchase with a nasty sacrificial heart.
which can be
Oh,
exchanged
I
at
get
the
it.
altar
It's
of
kind of like
Heavens
that thing
for one of
from
3 random
Hades.
upgrades. Choose from power-ups like ammo growth,
Oh,
which
are
reloads
hey,
non-equipped
that's actually
weapons
kind of
over
cool.
time, or brain
That's
rot
that's
to turn
different.
zombies
I'm
into
interested.
allies.
You can have freedom to be in a cool place that would never exist in the real world.
Have freedom to
different
be in a
region
cool
with
place that
different
wait.
inhabitants, and
What's
in
that
turn,
even supposed to
different
mean?
gameplay.
Battle across the rooftops of Hotel Royale on a rainy
Okay,
night
got
in
it. So the
Paris.
maps are
They'll
like
fight at the base
kind of
a
reuse
massive
MP maps, but
burning
not really.
windmill in Merville,
That's
which was
that's
actually
different.
part of the Normandy invasion. And they'll
Okay.
find themselves in the classic swamps of Shinonuma.
Oh,
which
so
is a truly eerie
Shinonuma's
setting that our
back, but
longtime
it's not.
fans will be familiar
It's
with.
not really the swamps, though, is it? Because we can't even leave the main area. Oh god, this is a disaster.
Objective called Blitz, which takes inspiration from that holdout style gameplay of just surviving.
Okay, so this
but
is holdout?
time You're taking the fight to them.
Why?
You
That's
hunt
kind of
zombies
ruins
who
the
drop
point of
tombstones that
zombies.
You can collect. Players must then deposit these
Okay, so this
into
is like
an
gather a
obelisk
thing.
called the City.
This is a soul box with
In
extra
transmit,
steps.
you'll
Okay,
escort
word.
a floating zombie head as it seeks weaknesses.
And
in
then this
dimensional
is the worst
barriers
objective in
These
Outbreak. Got it.
different challenges and eerie
Sick.
environments with dark settings help the player feel enveloped.
Do I
in
have any more
Cortex's
Vicodin?
grasp. And we can't
I-
wait for our fans
Where's
to
the rest of my
experience
Vicodin?
Launch is really just the tip of the iceberg. Everything post-launch is going to bring new twists, new stories, new characters.
Ah, yes, that post-launch content is going crazy right now. It was at this point that we all should have seen major red flags for the game. In fact, the last line in that trailer, they try to kind of sweep it under the rug so quickly that launch is just the beginning. It's like, yes, the beginning of development. Which brings me to point number 3. a prototype of a game. To say that Vanguard Zombies was unfinished at launch would be like saying LeBron James is slightly good at basketball. It doesn't even come close to reflecting the true reality of the situation. Now, I'm sure you all know the state that Vanguard launched in, but just in case you don't or you need a refresher, here's all of the things that Vanguard launched without that have been in every single Call of Duty Zombies map basically forever and have been essential features since the beginning. Pack-a-punch camo, main Easter egg, any Easter egg, pause button, fun, leaderboards, round-based maps, fun, score streaks, buildables, a wonder weapon. Oh, did I mention fun? Point is, Vanguard launched in what literally wasn't even an alpha build. That alone did insurmountable damage to the game's reputation and image in the public. Now, some have claimed the reason it was received by everyone so poorly was because we as YouTubers dunked on the game so hard that it swayed public perception. Let me just address how stupid this claim is really quick. Now, yes, I'll admit that YouTubers can slightly alter or influence the game's greater public perception of a video game, but ultimately, most people are smart enough to make their own decisions on a subject. But let's give you that point for a moment and consider that logic. Let's say YouTubers do control how a game is received. By that logic, YouTubers should do nothing but praise the game and chill it endlessly so that more people watch our videos and we make juicy ad revenue. In fact, it would actually be in our own best interests from a career standpoint to do just that, but myself and many fellow Zombies players will not tell you a Zombies game is good if we don't actually like it and are expected to play it all the time. If we say we don't like it going against even our own best interest, you may consider that the reason is we actually don't like the game very much. So no, YouTubers were not the reason Vanguard failed at launch. Similarly, they're not the reason why BO4 failed at launch. With that said, the game was pretty much universally hated on launch, and then we all put on our masks and started huffing that sweet copium in hopes of getting massive updates and getting the game up to speed to where it should be. Sure, maybe there's no solo pause at launch, you can get kicked out of a game in 2 minutes, and maybe there's no main Easter egg or even more than 3 objectives. It'll get better, right guys? Right? And this brings me to point number 4, no damage control. It was around this time shortly after the launch of Vanguard Zombies that all of the Activision allegations started coming out. Employees were literally refusing to come into work, people were quitting the company left, right, and center, and generally less work was getting done as a result because far more important events were taking place. That said, the game definitely suffered as a bystander to all the chaos that was happening in the workplace. So the small window that they had to recover the game was cut much shorter than probably what they were expecting. This is due to the fact that Activision basically told them to add zombies into this game at the very last minute anyways, and that's why the game feels so slapped together in a lot of ways. You really can't blame the developers entirely for this outcome. Much of it rests on the shoulders solely of Activision. That said, they did fail to add anything meaningful new to the game 3 months later. No pause button, no wonder weapon, no Easter egg, no new map. Everything was a disaster, and mostly everyone had already lost what sliver of interest they still had. Now, it would have been another thing if there wasn't a ton of content, but the core gameplay was solid and incredibly addicting. But that wasn't even the case either. And that brings me to my next point, number 5. The gameplay sucks. Now, I actually had to sit down and think about it for a while in detail. What is it about this gameplay in particular that doesn't work, where something on the surface level looks very structurally similar like Cold War? Why does that work, and in contrast, this doesn't? Now, I'm going to be primarily comparing this to Outbreak on Cold War, since while it's not perfect, Outbreak is a departure from the round-based formula that works to an extent in Zombies, and that I really like. So let's talk about what doesn't work about Vanguard's gameplay, and before we do that, I am going to point out anything positive that I do like about its gameplay, just to be fair. But on my first PlayStation, I could already tell something was off, even when it comes down to the ways that zombies hit you. Now stay with me here, this might get a little bit technical, but I promise it's for a reason and it's relevant. So in Vanguard, you have the ability to slide as part of your, movement tool set. You have upgraded stamina up that makes you run ridiculously fast. You have speed cola, stuff like this to get faster and do actions quicker in the game alongside Covenants. So to compensate, the zombies need to be insanely fast at a certain point as well. Super sprinters are very hard to balance right, and I think the game that got super sprinters the most correct was Cold War. Again, while not perfect, sure they're fast, but technically you can still outpace them if you know how to pace your sprints, even without the stamina perk acquired. For the most part, but not always, super sprinters in that game still feel like they're reactable, and the damage you take is earned, either from positioning poorly or reacting slowly. You can avoid almost all damage running around super sprinters in Cold War if you're good enough at movement. In Vanguard, the way at which the zombies move and the speed at which they do makes them feel super janky and random. You take so much of what feels like unearned damage throughout the match that the game starts to feel frustrating and broken. In fact, they recently had to raise the Juggernog health cap because super sprinters were killing fully armored players way too fast. That's an issue, no sauce. As many options as they give you for creative movement in Vanguard, it's all pointless because the zombie systems encourage you, in fact, to not move as much as possible and shoot zombies while relatively stationary. Now, one good thing I would like to point out, upgrading your perks in-game instead of from a menu is an awesome change. The way the process works in doing so, just buying it over and over again from the same perk machine, not so much. But I love the idea of upgrading the perks in-game far more than a permanent menu upgrade out of the game. There's some really neat in-game progression stuff in Vanguard, to be completely fair. It's just most of it is in service of nothing. It's also incredibly awkward the way they spawn into the map. In classic zombies, most of the time, zombies would come from fixed locations, either a barrier or a floor tile, generally behind the player as well, which is very important, and based on this knowledge, you can attempt to control the pace and flow of the game to a degree. In this game, zombies can just randomly appear in front of you from a dark ether portal that you had no say in predicting or preventing. The game just decides that a zombie will spawn on top of you. Also, one of the best feelings in classic Cod Zombies is gone. Having a massive horde of zombies that you mow down with a beefy weapon has now been replaced by sporadic crackhead zombies with insane amounts of health on high rounds, and it just isn't as satisfying to shoot zombies in this mode compared to older games. Don't even get me started on the mini-bosses. The machine gun mini-boss has no balancing factor whatsoever. Typically in zombies, a boss that can fire a projectile will have some kind of reactable sign or warning to their move that signals for you to avoid it. Think of like the Panzer or something. This guy literally just unloads bullets on you as soon as you're in a line of sight, or hell, sometimes even before that, you can get shot through walls. You just take damage that you can't really do anything about in a lot of cases. While sitting in an objective you cannot leave or something like that. The new one they added as well is a diet version of the Margwa. 3 phases with invulnerability, and she lays bombs, except there's nothing interesting or exciting about this boss at all. It's monotonous and dull. The mini-bosses are easily one of the worst parts of the core gameplay besides all the fundamental issues we just talked about. Oh, and God help you if you pause the game when there's a boom schreier out. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, which is obviously no round-based or traditional maps to speak of. After community pushback, however, they finally caved and added some sort of infinite wave objective to Shinonuma. It's clear they didn't want to do this, but the community was so outraged they had literally no other choice. Ultimately, though, there's just nothing interesting or exciting about the gameplay. At least in Outbreak, there's boss fights, wonder weapons, vehicles, better and more variety of objectives, better and more boss enemies, but Outbreak also existed alongside round-based maps. Duran Fong and Terra Maldicta is just the worst version of the Outbreak format possible. The Covenant system's kind of cool, and I honestly think they could expand on that a little bit more, and it has interesting uses potentially in zombies if done right, but it's just not in this game. And I'm just going to say it, this might be a controversial take that potentially would get me unfollowed on Twitter for, but in my opinion, graphical physical fidelity in terms of making a game look as realistic as possible is not only boring, but sometimes even gets in the way of good gameplay. Sure, the assets look nice in this engine, they really do, and the textures look clean, and the environments look somewhat realistic given, but it gets to a point where it becomes a hindrance on the actual gameplay. For example, shooting certain weapons in this game can cause so much screen shake and muzzle flare, you literally can't even tell what you're doing. There's like this weird hyper focus that some devs have on like ultra realism, especially just from a visual perspective, that I think is very misguided. In a lot of cases, we don't care what the game looks like as long as it's fun. Hell, some of my favorite games of all time look like they're made out of Play-Doh. I'm not implying that games shouldn't attempt to look good graphically or anything like that at all. All I'm saying is when you shift the bulk of your efforts to making your game appear pretty at the cost of the user's gameplay, it's like having a bright, shiny new Rolls Royce. It's gorgeous to look at, but under the hood, it has the engine of a 1980s Volvo. That's probably the best metaphor I have for this game. Bright, shiny, beautiful cone of paint, but as soon as you put any pressure on it, you realize there's not even basic drywall behind it. And that brings me to my final point. Number 6, this game just isn't zombies. Me making this video isn't saying anything bad about Call of Duty Zombies as a whole. Cold War made me truly fall in love with zombies again, and I'm really looking forward to playing and making content for their next game. And I have nothing against any devs who worked on this game personally. I really do appreciate their efforts, but unfortunately, this just ain't the one, my guy. But I don't think I want to make any more content on this game. Whatever this is, Vanguard, it isn't zombies to me. It's this weird and foreign copycat that completely misses the mark on why people even like zombies at all. It just feels so out of touch to me, which is unfortunate, and it didn't have to be that way. I wanted to like this game, and I imagine most of us did as well, but I won't lie to myself or to you guys about how I really feel about a certain game, and in all honesty, this may be the last Vanguard Zombies video I ever make. I know they have a second map now, and I've done its Easter egg and all that, and if you can even call it that, but unless some major advances are made to the game, I'm kind of just over it, honestly. I don't want to spend every day of my life talking about things that I dislike, so I figured I'd make one big video to get it out of my system, and we'll see what happens from there. In conclusion, though, the cause of death for Vanguard was a lot more complicated than just, oh, no content at launch. While it was a major part of it, there were still so many surrounding factors that contributed to that as well and made it irrecoverable. I really hope they learn from the situation, and again, I'm rooting for them going forward in whatever projects they're making next in 2023 or Treyarch's next game in 2024. I'm going to be here for the ride, and I'm excited to crush it and go all in on the next title. But at this point, I'm officially retired from trying to be genuinely interested in Vanguard Zombies.